Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring a world that I think a lot of people find intriguing, maybe even a little frightening. We're talking about the occult. You guys sent us this fascinating interview with Marino, Chen, and she was deeply involved in the occult, but now she speaks out about the dangers of the New Age movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack's journey is really remarkable, It's a powerful testament to just how deceptive these belief systems can be.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the incredible power of finding genuine faith.
Right.
We're going to trace her path, from seeking solace in the supernatural to ultimately finding true peace and freedom in Christianity.
And what really struck me was how her story begins. Jack experienced intense trauma as a young child, sexual abuse that really left her feeling incredibly lost and alone.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme that we see, Early trauma often creates a vulnerability to spiritual deception.
Right.
She was searching for something bigger than herself, something to fill that void, left by that pain.
Right.
And that search, it led her down a very dangerous path.
Yeah.
And she was just 7 years old when she had what she calls a supernatural experience, seeing these lights in the sky. At first, she thought they were angels, but later came to believe that they were aliens.
It's fascinating how these types of experiences, especially when they're tied to trauma, they can become a catalyst,
Yeah.
for someone to seek meaning and connection in the supernatural.
Right.
These experiences, they can offer this sense of hope and purpose, and that can be incredibly seductive for someone who is struggling with pain and shame.
Yeah, so she's dealing with this trauma, she's searching for answers, and then she has this experience that further fuels her curiosity about the supernatural.
Yeah.
So what happened next? What happened?
Well, Jack's fascination with aliens, it led her to explore New Age beliefs, particularly the law of attraction. The idea that you can manifest your own reality through your thoughts and beliefs.
Like the secret phenomenon.
Exactly.
Right. It's so pervasive in our culture. But this idea of controlling your destiny, especially after experiencing such a loss of control in childhood, that must have been really appealing to her.
Absolutely. The New Age, it often presents itself as this path to empowerment and self-discovery.
Right.
But if you dig a little deeper, it's rooted in this idea of self-deification, this idea that you can become your own God.
Yeah.
It flips the script on the traditional Christian understanding of humanity's relationship with God.
Right.
Where we're called to surrender to a higher power.
Right. So she starts dabbling in these New Age practices, trying to manifest her own reality. Right. Was that when things started to take a darker turn?
Well, it was a gradual process.
Okay.
The New Age can often seem harmless.
Yeah. But for someone seeking deeper meaning and control, it can become a gateway to more intense practices.
Okay.
And in Jack's case, a significant turning point was a relationship with a man who introduced her to this concept of twin flames, this idea of two souls eternally connected,
Oh, wow.
destined to be together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the twin flame concept, that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Especially for someone like Jack who was, longing for that connection.
Right.
The sense of belonging.
Absolutely.
But it's also, rife with potential for manipulation and control.
Exactly. It promises this idealized connection that can be used to really exploit vulnerabilities.
And sadly, that seems to have been the case for Jack.
Yeah.
This relationship ended very badly, leaving her even more determined to find that sense of power and control that she craved.
Right. And that desperation, led her to experiment with psychedelics, trying to contact these entities that she believed she had seen as a child. She wanted to access a deeper level of knowledge and power.
Right.
But it still wasn't enough. She was seeking something more, something beyond the New Age.
So if the New Age was just the first step, where did this path ultimately lead her?
Well, her search for true power ultimately led her to the occult.
Okay.
Specifically an order called the Golden Dawn, which practiced ritual magic.
Hold on. She joined an actual occult order. Like, what did that entail?
The Golden Dawn, they're a fascinating group, but they're very complex. They draw heavily from ancient mystical traditions like Kabbalah and Egyptian mythology.
Okay.
Blending them with Western esotericism.
Okay.
They believed that they could access this hidden knowledge and power through rituals.
Mm-hmm.
And symbolic language.
So it wasn't just some like casual influence.
Yeah.
This was like a serious commitment.
Oh, yeah. Her initiation was a full-blown ritual experience. It took place in a Freemason lodge.
Wow.
Involved swearing oaths of secrecy, and it included a lot of symbolism, often drawing from ancient Egyptian deities and interpretations of Christian imagery.
Wow. So she's now officially a member of this occult order.
Yeah.
Like, what sorts of activities did she participate in?
Her practice involved ritual magic.
Yeah.
Things like creating sigils,
Okay.
performing invocations.
Yeah.
They believed they could use these practices to influence reality
Right.
and manifest their desires.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the most disturbing aspects was her exposure to and eventual participation in something called sex magic.
Wait, sex magic, I've heard the term before, but what exactly does that mean in the context of the occult?
Essentially, it's the belief that sexual energy can be harnessed and directed for specific purposes, like manifesting desires or achieving spiritual power.
So they're not just celebrating sexuality, they're trying to manipulate it for some greater end.
Yeah.
That's a very different perspective than the Christian view of sex as a sacred act within marriage.
It's a prime example of how the occult often twists and distorts concepts from traditional religions.
Right.
Jack was being taught to view her sexuality as a tool for power rather than a gift to be cherished.
Right.
And expressed within a framework of love and commitment.
This is where I start to feel deeply unsettled. It seems like she was being drawn further and further away from healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And into a world of manipulation and darkness.
You're right to feel that way. But even in the midst of all this, there were glimmers of truth that began to break through, moments of doubt and unease that planted the seeds for her eventual escape from this world.
Really? So even with all this immersion in the occult, she was still grappling with some internal conflict.
Yeah.
That's intriguing. What were those glimmers of truth that she was experiencing?
Well, we'll delve into that right after. We'll delve into that next time.
All right. So we'll pick it up in our next deep dive.
Yeah.
So we left off with Jack, deeply involved in this occult order, but also experiencing these moments of doubt and unease.
Yeah.
What caused those cracks in her belief system?
Despite her immersion in the occult, Jack hadn't completely abandoned her childhood exposure to Christianity.
Right.
She started reading the Bible again.
Okay.
And certain verses, they began to resonate with her in a new way.
Yeah. It's amazing how powerful scripture can be, even when someone has been steeped in completely different belief systems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One verse that really struck her was 2 Corinthians 11.14, where Paul warns that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light.
Right.
And this started to make her question whether the enlightenment and the power that she was seeking in the occult,
right,
might actually be a deception.
Yeah, that verse is so relevant to Jack's story. I mean, the occult often presents itself as this path to knowledge and freedom.
Right.
But as we've seen, it can lead to a very different reality.
Exactly. And another thing that started to chip away at her beliefs was the hypocrisy that she witnessed within the order.
What do you mean by hypocrisy?
She saw that the leaders of the order, the ones who claim to have access to such profound knowledge and power,
right,
they were struggling with the same human weaknesses and addictions as anyone else.
Right.
It made her question whether they truly possessed the answers that they claim to have.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point. I mean, it's easy to get swept up in the mystique of these groups, but ultimately their leaders are still human, subject to the same flaws and failings as everyone else.
Absolutely. Jack, she realized that the fruits of the occult, the darkness and brokenness that she was witnessing, it didn't align with the peace and transformation that she longed for. It created a dissonance that she couldn't ignore.
So she's starting to have these doubts, but she's still deeply involved in this order. Was there a specific event that caused her to finally break free?
Well, there was a terrifying turning point. One night, Jack experienced what she describes as a spiritual attack in her apartment.
Okay.
You know, it felt like a dark force was trying to overpower her, and she was filled with this sense of dread and helplessness.
That sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like all the darkness that she had been dabbling in was suddenly turning on her.
Yeah, it was a moment of crisis, a true confrontation with the evil that she had been involved with. But here's the incredible thing. In that moment of desperation, she cried out to Jesus Christ for help.
Wow. Even after everything that she had experienced, even while immersed in the occult, she still had that like instinct to turn to Jesus.
Yeah, it speaks to the power of God's grace and the fact that he never gives up on us no matter how far we stray.
So what happened when she called out to Jesus?
The attack stopped instantly. Jack felt this overwhelming sense of peace wash over her, a peace she had never known before. And she realized that the God of the Bible, you know, the God she had learned about as the child, he was real, and he had just rescued her from something truly evil.
It's like all those glimmers of truth that she had been experiencing finally like coalesced into this moment of profound clarity.
Yeah, it was a genuine conversion experience.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just an intellectual understanding of Christianity.
Right.
It was a complete transformation of her heart and mind.
So this terrifying experience was actually the catalyst for her to fully embrace the Christian faith.
Yeah.
So what happened next? Did she immediately leave the occult?
She did. Jack knew she couldn't continue down that path. You know, she left the order, she got sober from her addictions, and she immersed herself in the Bible.
It sounds like she was finally finding like true freedom and healing.
She was. And she realized that her redemption wasn't just about escaping the darkness of the occult.
Okay.
It was about embracing the love and grace offered through Jesus Christ.
So often we focus on the negative aspects of leaving a cult or a harmful belief system, but it's important to remember that there's a positive side as well.
Absolutely.
A new life, you know, waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, and for Jack, that new life involved finding a church that preached the true gospel, you know, surrounding herself with a supportive community of believers, and eventually meeting and marrying her husband.
That's beautiful. It's like her whole life was completely transformed through this experience.
It really was.
And her story doesn't end there. Right? Now she's using her experiences to warn others about the dangers of the new age and the occult.
It's so powerful that she's able to take something so painful and use it to help others. But there's a lot to unpack here. Her story raises so many questions about discernment, spiritual warfare, and the power of redemption.
Definitely. Those are questions I think that we should continue to explore.
Absolutely.
Maybe next time.
Sounds good.
You know, Jack's story, it's incredibly powerful, and as you mentioned, it raises a lot of questions. One thing that strikes me is how easily someone can get drawn into these belief systems. You know, it's not always about joining some secretive order. It can start with something as seemingly innocent as self-help books, or just a fascination with spirituality.
Oh, absolutely. You know, New Age and occult ideas, they've permeated our culture in very subtle ways. You know, we see it in the popularity of crystals, astrology, manifestation techniques, even in certain yoga practices that incorporate Eastern mysticism. It's often packaged as personal growth or empowerment, which makes it even more appealing.
So how can we discern what's genuinely helpful from what might be potentially harmful? Like, what are some red flags to watch out for?
Well, one key thing is to be aware of the emphasis on self-deification.
Okay.
You know, the idea that we can become our own gods or tap into some hidden power within ourselves, you know. This directly contradicts the Christian understanding of a sovereign God who is separate from us and to whom we are accountable.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction, recognizing like where true power and authority lie. Jack mentioned the concept of Christ consciousness being prevalent in the occult.
Right.
And it sounds like a Christian idea, but it's actually quite different.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how the occult often appropriates and distorts Christian concepts. You know, Christ consciousness in the occult, it doesn't refer to a relationship with the historical Jesus Christ.
Right.
Instead, it promotes the idea that we all possess this divine spark within, and we can achieve a state of enlightenment or godhood through our own efforts.
So it's taking a biblical truth and twisting it into something that ultimately promotes self-worship.
Exactly.
It's subtle, but incredibly deceptive.
Very much so. Another red flag is the focus on achieving power and control through manipulation of spiritual forces or energies. This can manifest in practices like ritual magic, using spells or incantations to try to bend reality to one's will.
It's like the temptation to play God.
Yeah.
To try to force outcomes instead of surrendering to a higher power. And this desire for control, I mean, as we saw in Jack's story, it can stem from past trauma or a need to fill a void in our lives.
Absolutely. That's why it's so crucial to address those underlying emotional and spiritual needs in a healthy way, through therapy, through supportive relationships, through genuine faith. We need to be anchored in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Something that offers true security and hope, not the fleeting promises of power that the occult offers.
And Jack's story also highlights the reality of spiritual warfare. The battle between good and evil that's happening in the unseen realm.
Yeah.
I mean, her experience with that spiritual attack was terrifying.
Yeah.
It makes you realize this isn't just theoretical. This is real.
Oh, absolutely. The enemy is real, and he seeks to deceive and destroy. But we're not left defenseless as Christians. We have authority over the enemy through Jesus Christ.
Right.
We also have the armor of God, as described in Ephesians 6, to protect us from spiritual attacks.
So we need to be vigilant, aware of the enemy's tactics, and equipped with the spiritual tools to resist him. But I think Jack's story also offers a message of hope. No matter how far someone has gone down a dark path, there's always a way back.
That's the beauty of God's redemptive power.
Yeah.
His grace is sufficient for any struggle, any darkness, any deception. Jack's journey is a powerful testament to that.
Her transformation is inspiring.
Yeah.
It reminds us that no one is beyond the reach of God's love. So
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you resonate with parts of Jack's story, if you're struggling with similar issues or you feel drawn to these belief systems, please know that there's hope.
Yeah, reach out to a trusted pastor or a Christian counselor. Find a church that preaches the true gospel. Surround yourself with a supportive community of believers who can help you navigate these challenges, and most importantly, immerse yourself in God's word.
Yeah.
It's our guidebook, our weapon against deception, our source of truth and hope.
Jack's story is a stark reminder that the spiritual realm is real, and the choices that we make have eternal consequences. But it's also a story of redemption, a testament to the power of God's love to transform even the darkest of hearts. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive. May you leave encouraged, informed, and empowered to seek truth and walk in the freedom that only Christ can offer.